Hi, everybody, and welcome to Myth Monday with High Priestess Chelsea and Dr. K. And today, if you click this video, we are talking about who is the Greek goddess Aphrodite, a goddess so beloved in modern day and also in ancient time. I am joined with Dr. K today from, you probably know us from Styx and Bones Podcast. Dr. K, tell us in your own words, like you're being quizzed.
I know. I'm ready for double jeopardy.
And then basically this is what it is. Who is the Greek goddess Aphrodite? Because by my research, she's a goddess of many things.
You guys, she is the goddess, Greek goddess, I should say, of so many things. She is the Greek goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, sex, all of the fun things for the girls. But like many gods and different pantheons in mythology, she has her fingers in multiple pots, if you will. She has associations with other aspects like war. And if you believe it or not, she also has ties to marriage as well.
Well, it makes sense considering, once again, she is a goddess of love. And I feel like that is the aspect that most people know, especially in modern day. Those of you that are interested in Aphrodite, getting into Greek religion, Hellenic polytheism, or worship of her, love is the main factor that sticks out when we look at Aphrodite. And of course, she would rule over so many different things, especially around love. But what can you tell me about the marital aspect of Aphrodite? Because I feel like that's one that most people tend to leave out when
Yeah.
talking about her. That's the one
No,
that it's what all the girls want. You know what I mean? They want to get to the end game, but it's the
yeah.
one that's like not talked about.
No, it's so fascinating because to the ancient Greeks of, the Eastern Mediterranean world back in the day, she was, a dual goddess with other goddesses who had ties to marriage, like Hera, Demeter, even with, fertility and her daughter Persephone. So she is kind of, the twofold aspect of marriage where, many would leave offerings to Persephone for fidelity, equal, partnership power in a relationship, really wanting that with your spouse back in the day, especially for these young girls who were, some were betrothed upon birth. So for many of these young girls, they wanted that equal partnership. But of course, in today's society, even so many of us want love, passion, almost that honeymoon phase.
Yes.
And what better Greek goddess to turn to than none other than Aphrodite? And, so many ancient individuals would have left votive offerings to her as well as Persephone. So you get the fidelity, but you also get fertility, you get passion, you get that lust in a sense, which you need both in a successful marriage.
Absolutely. She is everything. And speaking of Aphrodite being a goddess of love, once again, also another thing that I feel like is not talked about a lot as well with her is
Hmm.
love is
Oof.
two-sided, okay?
Yes.
And if you are someone that loves Greek mythology or the Greek gods like we do, we break down Greek myths on our podcast, Six and Bones podcast. You know that all of these myths really center around a lot of love, jealousy, and spite. And when you look at Aphrodite, not only is she a goddess of like the love that we all want, but there also
Hmm.
is a darker side that comes
Oof.
through in the game of love. Everyone's probably experienced it where
Yeah.
you had a very toxic ex, you could have been in a toxic relationship, you could have had your heart broken, obsession and jealousy and all these things that come with the toxic side, a darker side of love. And
Hmm.
so, what I love most about Aphrodite, LOL, what I love most is Aphrodite has experienced the dark side of love magic. I mean, love herself.
Yeah.
She has a very tragic story, and it is the
Oh.
story of Adonis, who is a mortal man that she fell in love with. And it has a very tragic ending based on jealousy and spite, depending on the myth that you're talking about.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, so much so that because of how the ancients were moved by Aphrodite and this story of Adonis, there is a sacred festival that goes on in the summertime to Aphrodite and him that we actually talk about further in Six and Bones podcast. We'll go into the episodes at the end that you can
Yeah.
find that, and you'll find it also in the show notes. And a way that you can also celebrate Aphrodite and Adonis's love as well. But
It's incredible.
It's really incredible. It's so moving. And honestly, like I really recommend checking out our podcast because we dive into the myth and also the festival that is celebrated. And every time I get the chills every time I talk about it
Mhm.
because we all think of Aphrodite as like this goddess of just enchantress, this beauty and lust. And it's like she's actually been through some serious shit, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term.
No, she's seen a thing or two, and
Yes.
it really encapsulates that, for so many of us, you kind of have to go through everything in love. Love is just not, linear. Love is so many different things. And, with the darker side of love, whether it's, moving through grief in a sense, or whether it's, that first inkling of love, if you will, with, developing a crush even. And it's so fascinating because you know, today, like, oh, you might be, meeting somebody online, social media apps or anything like that. You might be, sending a flirtatious message, if you will. Well, the ancients weren't exactly doing DMs back in the day. They were throwing fruit, they were throwing apples. So remember when we were growing up and like, your mom or somebody would say, oh, well, they just like you. Like, that's why they're like pulling on your hair, or that's why they're like saying all this stuff. They like you. Well, it's better than, back in the day, some 2000 plus years ago, individuals would yeet apples if they had a crush on you and hopefully hit you with it.
Yes. Also something we talk about in Six and Bones podcast even further. But one more thing I want to mention before we kind of close out Aphrodite today. Speaking of darker side of love, I don't think
Yeah.
people realize that in the ancient world, people were actually writing up curse tablets with Aphrodite's titles or epithets on it to bind people to them. And
Yeah.
once again, we have a plethora of podcast episodes diving into curse tablets. If you're like, what do you mean? What's a curse tablet? What do you mean we're using Aphrodite? What are the girls talking about on this Myth Monday? Because I didn't know any of this. I thought she was just a goddess of love. Yes, she is. But we do on the podcast dive into examples of men actually binding women on a curse tablet where
Hmm.
they are asking Aphrodite for her help because they want love. Or we even have triangles of lovers, people trying to steal each other's betrothed.
Oh,
Because remember, in the ancient world, who you marry matters, and you have to be married, or else
yeah.
you don't have a life.
Yeah, it's truly like, you think reality TV is like crazy right now. Like, it is the ancient curse tablets of who's trying to bind who to whom, who's trying to steal who from who. It's what I imagine like Love Island, or, Love is Blind of the ancient world. Like,
Absolutely. Plot twist, what you can also find on the podcast is our gal pal Hecate is also another one that
mhm.
was being invoked on these curse tablets to bind people together using
Yeah.
the restless dead. So there are a lot of things going on in the ancient world. And while we do want to talk about the amazing side of love, we have to talk about the darker side as well, because there's duality in a lot of the things that we do. And there's more depth to Aphrodite than some of the things that you might know.
Yeah, a lot of people want to, of course, just boil her down to, she's just a goddess of love and all of this. And I I implore each of you to open up a Greek mythology book, because man, it's absolutely wild from start to finish of what's going on, why certain things are happening that the way they are, all of that kind of stuff. Did you know Aphrodite is also a queen in her own right? And there's so much that's, not talked about, but is so worthy of, just of all of her myths. It's just as worthy as being up there with her affairs with Ares or her marriage to Hephaestus. It's equally, it should be talked about, that she's got ties to war, that she's got ties to curse tablets. Like, men would have to say her name a certain amount of times, locking eyes with their beloved and saying certain things. Like, it's crazy.
It is. And I think, this concludes our Myth Monday. I almost just said Hecate. My gosh, maybe that. I mean, listen, we've done so many episodes on Hecate. This concludes our Myth Monday of Aphrodite because, like I said, we dive deep into Aphrodite on
Hmm.
2 to 3 of these podcast episodes that we have at Six of Bones podcast. Where can the good people, what episode numbers? Because we have 96 episodes on. If you want to join us for Greek mythology, learning more about the Greek gods, Hellenic polytheism, ancient magic, superstition. Me and Dr. K are covering it all over on our podcast with more long form content, which you can also find here on YouTube.
Hmm.
But what episode numbers can they find those at if they want to, deep dive into Aphrodite?
Absolutely. So if you're looking to just get, who is Aphrodite and a bit of the darker side of love magic, you can find that over on episode 61. If you're looking for, what the hell was the thing with the apples? Well, that is episode
I
89.
always forget about that one. We did do a whole fruits episode on like, here's some fruits besides a pomegranate that
We
are
did talk
cool.
about the pomegranate too.
We did, but the
We
girls are over
talked about it in
pomegranate.
like a different way. What can
Yes.
you do with said fruit? So if you're looking to yeet some apples at people, that is going to be episode 89. If you're looking for, you said she's like a queen in her own right. Yeah, she's the Queen of Cyprus, fun fact. That is episode 90, The Queens of Mythology, where we also cover Hera and Persephone alongside of her. And if you're like, wait, there's ancient love triangles that we know about.
Yes.
You bet your bottom dollar we do. And that is going to be on episode 93, where we talk about curse tablets, love triangles. There's also a medieval curse tablet where demons are brought in.
We're
Like,
talking about it all, everybody. We are the girls that do it all over here.
truly, there is never a dull moment. So, whether you enjoy Greek mythology, goddesses, Aphrodite, or you're like, oh, I'm into the mystery cults of Dionysus, well, we got everything here for you. But if you're like, oh my God, I want more, I want all of this kind of stuff, where else can you find, Chelsea and myself? Well, I'm going to be dropping an Oracle lecture. That's right. I'm also a college professor. If you are interested in learning about oracles of the ancient world, yes, Aphrodite had her own. You can check that out as well. Styx and Bones Temple. You guys, we also have a store as well. So
We
for
run a temple.
any of the girlies who are interested in Aphrodite, Greek mythology, anything like that. Well, we sell products that are inspired by her beauty, her lore. And if you're wanting, to create an altar for self love or even to Aphrodite, well, we got that for you as well. So be sure to go ahead and check that out. Chelsea's actually holding up the Aphrodite
Yes.
candle.
I
Oh,
am holding up the Aphrodite candle. I have to speak because if it doesn't, I it doesn't like go to me. So here is our beautiful Aphrodite candle. We just created this. Aphrodite, she is seasonal in our store and it's summertime. The girls are trying to find love. They want someone to buy them gelato on the beach and be romanced. Like who doesn't want that? So
hmm.
anyway, this is our beautiful Aphrodite candle. We hand create everything. We own a temple to the chthonic gods and we teach. So come join us.
Come join us. Come join the mystery cult over on Patreon. And we hope to see you guys next month for more Myth Mondays. From us to you, we hope to see you there. Bye.
Bye.